All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's Smith in the Virtual World panel. My name is Emily Beaudry. I'm the internship coordinator at the Lazarus Center for Career Development, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Lazarus Center Senior Associate Director, Deb Weinhoven. She's helping me with some behind-the-scenes stuff. This is the fourth and final panel of the Smith in the Virtual World conference series. For the past 3 Fridays, we've featured students with internships in the arts, nonprofit and social impact, and STEM fields. So whether you attended those other panels or if you're just joining us for this one, we welcome all who've taken the time to join us today, including students, prospective Smithies, faculty, staff, family and friends, supervisors, colleagues, and all others. Thank you so much for joining us to hear from these wonderful students. A little background about this conference. The Smith in the World Conference is co-sponsored by the Lazarus Center for Career Development, the Provost's Office, and the Committee on Academic Priorities at Smith, and it's usually held on campus each fall. The conference is intended to celebrate and share students off-campus experiential learning, including their internships, community service, research, or study abroad. Students offer reflections on how these experiences have impacted and enriched their academic and professional paths. So during a typical year, this experiential learning takes place in person, but as we all know, last spring, that format was quickly changed to remote. And so our conference has shifted to virtual as well. But as you can see, that just means lots more people can join us. So for that, we are very grateful. Our panelists today will give short presentations about their summer 2020 remote internships, focusing on their projects, their pivot to remote work, and how they made the most of these experiences despite all the obstacles they faced. So today's topic is sustainability, and I'm so honored to introduce all of our panelists. First, we will hear from Jamila dePeiza-Kern, who interned for the American Public Gardens Association. Next, we'll hear from Storm Lewis, who interned with the Corbin Hill Food Project. Then we will hear from Sofia Romero Campbell, who interned with the New Mexico Acequia Association. And finally, we'll hear from Prachi Adhikari, who learned all about sustainable investing with Prometheus Capital. Today's session is being recorded, so we ask all audience members to please keep your microphones on mute. And we encourage you to submit any questions you have for our presenters using the chat tool. Deb and I will collect those questions and they'll be addressed after the 4 presentations are finished. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our first panelist, Jamila.
Yeah, all right, let me get my screen shared. All right, can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. So hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm so excited to be here and tell you all about my summer experience. So a little bit about me first. My name is Jamila. I'm a junior at Smith. I'm an anthropology major, a landscape studies minor, and I have a concentration in community engagement and social change. And this summer, I participated in a virtual internship with the American Public Gardens Association. And I'd like to tell you more about that now. So like for so many, this summer turned out to be a completely unexpected experience. I initially had planned to participate in a 3-week summer study abroad program in Denmark, followed by an internship at the Smith Botanic Garden. But instead, COVID-19 changed everything. And the staff at the Botanic Garden at Smith really tirelessly supported their students and used their expertise and connections to find fulfilling experiences for all of us interns. And for that, I am so, so grateful. And so that is how I came to work for the American Public Gardens Association. And despite the virtual format, it was a really uplifting, fun, and valuable experience. Headquartered in Pennsylvania, the American Public Gardens Association, or APGA, is a nonprofit organization of public gardens, botanic gardens, and arboreta. As the leading association for public horticulture professionals, APGA is committed to increasing cooperation and awareness among gardens. Membership includes more than 600 institutions in the US, Canada, and 20 other countries. The association offers numerous opportunities for education and networking. In addition, it seeks to advance knowledge of plants, sustainability, best practices, and the future of public horticulture. The association's vision is for a world in which public gardens are indispensable, and I really love that. APGA has distilled its work into 3 categories: connect, protect, and champion. The goal of Connect is to maintain and strengthen collaboration in the field of public horticulture and to increase the impact of public gardens worldwide. Protect aims to address challenges of climate change by protecting plant collections, responding to the threat of invasive species, and acting as stewards of botanical treasures. And Champion is a way to give voice to the importance and vitality of a strong public garden movement and to seek support for the continued existence of such institutions in the future. During my time at APGA this summer, I was involved with 2 main projects. The first was to work with member gardens to craft written profiles to be featured in the association's Sustainability Index. Another central feature of my work was to participate in the association's first ever virtual conference, which just last summer was still a rather new and unprecedented idea. So at the beginning, my primary task was to work with the association's Public Gardens Sustainability Index. And the index is defined as a suite of attributes. The purpose of the index is to provide a network of resources and to inspire member gardens to advance their sustainability goals while connecting with other global sustainability efforts. Specifically, the index highlights gardens that excel in their sustainability practices. APGA identifies 3 categories: environmental, social, and economic, which are then further subdivided into 12 attributes covering topics such as water quality and consumption, sustainable community development, and business planning and management. During the summer, I helped prepare materials for the launch of 3 attributes: energy use and impacts, engagement, outreach, and education, and local regional economic health. I communicated with member gardens across the United States and internationally to create compelling garden profiles, which included a summary of their work, complete with maps and photos. I created about 8 profiles across different attributes. Here you can see an example of several of the profiles I created for the biodiversity and conservation attribute. I particularly enjoyed learning about plants from different geographic regions and ecosystems and the strategies the gardens employed to preserve and strengthen their collections. One of my personal favorite profiles that I created was for the Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria in Melbourne, Australia, as part of the Climate Adaptation and Risk Management attribute. This was a lot of fun because I had studied this garden in my fall semester horticulture class at Smith, and so it was so cool that here I was writing their profile. The work of the Melbourne Gardens is particularly inspirational as they're adapting their plant collections to the projected climate of 2090, along with adopting an integrated water management system. So kind of switching tracks, APGA's first ever virtual summer conference titled Recrafting Gardens for a Changed World featured a variety of speakers and sessions. My duties included acting as a host, welcoming the speakers and orienting them to the webinar, organizing the Q&A at the end, and coordinating some of the technical aspects of the webinar. Getting to meet the presenters was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed every opportunity I had to listen in to the fascinating sessions, from solutions-based climate action to global strategies for plant conservation and combating plant blindness, which is a really interesting topic. So feel free to ask me more about that later. All in all, I had a really, really wonderful summer with APGA, and I felt so welcomed into the association family despite the virtual format. At first, I was a little bit intimidated about joining my colleagues without ever actually meeting them in person. And I also wondered if I would be up to the task. But by the time my internship was over, I felt really integrated into the group and confident about my contributions. I gained a lot of insights into the world of public and botanic gardens, as well as forging personal connections with garden professionals. And in addition, my internship was followed by some even more exciting opportunities. After learning more about sustainable community development, I added a concentration in community engagement and social change to my plan of study. While I hope to go into a landscape architecture related field, I've learned that community engagement is a critical part of the design process in order to design spaces with and not for a community. Along with Smith Botanic Garden Director Tim Johnson, I was invited as a guest on the public radio podcast Cultivating Place, hosted by Jennifer Jewell. And lastly, through my experience with APGA, I was able to continue my work with the Botanic Garden at Smith as a digital resource assistant, editing videos for the horticulture class, which were eventually turned into a public-facing series featured on the Botanic Garden's YouTube channel. I want to finish by expressing my gratitude to the Lazarus Center for creating the opportunity for Praxis despite the unexpected circumstances. My sincerest gratitude also go to the Botanic Garden at Smith and the staff for their really heroic efforts in finding virtual opportunities for all of us interns. And my deepest thanks, of course, to APGA for giving me the chance to learn, grow, and garden with such a wonderful organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamila. Next up, we're going to hear from Storm Lewis.
All right, present. Good afternoon. My name is Storm Lewis, and I am a senior at Smith College. I use she, her pronouns, and my major is environmental science and policy with a concentration in sustainable foods and a minor in studio art. And so last summer, I spent my time interning with the Corbin Hill Food Project. And Corbin Hill is a food sovereignty-based social enterprise that delivers fresh local produce to communities through a direct-to-consumer farm share program and to institutions and community organizations through its wholesale program. Therefore, it varies from a traditional community-supported agriculture model in that there's more flexibility with the programming and there's reduced risk for the shareholders receiving produce involved. And also there are varying price levels so that it's accessible financially to people from low-income communities. So there are multiple distribution sites and they're spread throughout New York City, but during COVID-19, they had to switch their model and they consolidated many of their sites. So they're now mainly operating out of Upper Manhattan. So I initially found Corbin Hill through a search for volunteer opportunities during my first year at Smith. And I was able to maintain contact with the organization and maintain my ability to volunteer with them during breaks all throughout my time. And last summer, I finally had the time to invest in a full-time internship with them. So I was really excited to use Praxis as a way to fund that opportunity. And so for me, the shift to remote working was very challenging, but I think it was manageable based on the projects that lent well to a remote style of work. So a lot of it was computer-based and administration-based work. So as an intern, I attended the staff meetings, I managed the Corbin Hill social media, and I handled about 80% of the customer relations. So this involved emailing and coordinating with shareholders and problem solving any of the issues that they had in terms of getting their produce for each week. So in addition to that, I managed all of the social media accounts, so the Facebook, the Instagram, and Twitter, and that involved updating those accounts, but also producing weekly newsletters where I was able to really shed light on some of the stories and experiences of those working on the front line. So people, the site coordinators that were distributing food each week. So I wrote a total of about 12 weekly newsletters, and They all included some form of additional research or interviews to supplement and kind of inform the articles for each newsletter. And that included a range of stakeholders. So some of them were community partners who have been working with the organization for many years, like Brotherhood Sister Soul in Harlem, New York, along with site coordinators that have been working with Corbin Hill for over 50 years. And they had a lot of experiences to share. I also highlighted the work of Black farmers and packing cooperatives based in Brooklyn that are now partnering with the Corbin Hill Food Project to help them get their food distributed. And additionally, I wrote other types of articles that were more informational pieces, so things about composting and how to do that at home, along with descriptions of really interesting vegetables that would be included in the weekly shares. So one week we had garlic scapes that were grown at the Corbin Hill farm in upstate New York that we were able to include in the farm share, which was really interesting and exciting. And so these are two examples of the graphics that I created for the newsletters. And for me, working on the newsletters was probably one of the most significant experiences because I was able to connect with people from different parts of the food supply chain. So I was able to also develop a deeper understanding of the challenges that they face. So ranging from producers, distributors to consumers as well. And specifically during an interview with farmer David Holton, he went on to explain how challenging it can be to farm organically. And those challenges range from access to land, access to loans, to even the price of organic products such as fertilizers and seeds. And within 1 year, he had spent $30,000 to produce a crop of organic apples. And in return, he only yielded about $200 in profit. And so for me, it was really shocking to hear how difficult it was for him to sell the organic produce at the market. So small things like marks or worm remnants would deter people from purchasing those products, which are mainly a result of the organic pest management practices that he has to utilize. But also what really influenced my understanding of food systems more broadly was learning that this issue is not specific to this farmer. This is a major issue for Black farmers across the US right now, and there's a long history of this. And in fact, Black farmers' net income is about a $900 loss compared to a $42,000 annual income for white farmers in the US as of 2017. So learning that was really eye-opening for me during this experience. And going on to more broadly, the internship really informed my studies at Smith, just all encompassing because of my focus in sustainable food systems. And so within my courses, I specifically study food sovereignty initiatives in urban contexts, and working on the operational side of a food hub like Corbin Hill really gave me insight and informed my research to really shed light and serve as a platform to continue my involvement. So this graphic is an example of the participatory action research that I was able to continue at Smith, and where I interviewed shareholders and interviewed community partners and basically got a sense of their needs and how the organization could better meet its mission. And so now over J-term, I've continued my work with Corbin Hill, and I'm now working in a more of a student consultant role, so more communications based, where I'm co-creating with the founder of Corbin Hill a 2-part webinar series focusing on Black farmers' pathways to success. So I'm also a part of that series. I'm developing a survey to really integrate shareholders, so the people receiving produce, into the decision-making processes. And that's really in response to some of the needs that they had mentioned and made known during those interviews that I carried out through my research. And so this webinar series will just really be a way to shed light on some of the work of these farmers and so the issues that they've been able to overcome. And this broadly informs my interest and just my career in general in food systems, and really gave me a true understanding of the issues on the ground. So I would like to acknowledge and thank the people that made this internship possible. One of them being Erica Christensen, who's the growth and operations manager at Corbin Hill. And she really played a large role in supervising me and providing me with a lot of guidance, along with Dennis Derrick, the founder of Corbin Hill, who serves as a mentor for me now, like, and just now, like before during my internship, but now currently, along with all of the Praxis staff who made this possible. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Storm. Next, we will hear from Sofia Romero Campbell.
Sharing my screen. All right, can everybody see that? Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Sofia Romero Campbell. I'm a senior at Smith College. I'm a government major, Latino studies minor with a concentration in sustainable food. And I'm so excited to be presenting today on the panel with other great panelists talking about my internship experience regarding water governance in New Mexico. Before I continue on with this presentation, I want to center this conversation and explain what an acequia is. I interned with the New Mexico Acequia Association, but acequias themselves are really important and explain a lot of what I did. So acequias are basically gravity-fed ditches, but they're also very important governing institutions and are an important part of the culture and history of the Southwest, particularly in New Mexico. They were brought over by the Spanish and who also adopted them from the Moors back in Europe. But right now, they're especially important as we see the impacts of climate change, because they're a responsive and functional system that only accounts for water that's flowing. So a lot of people, scientists, climate change activists are looking at them as a blueprint for the future and as drier climates become drier. So as I said before, I interned with the New Mexico Acequia Association. They are a nonprofit organization and the only organization working with acequia communities to help them navigate the financial and logistical demands of the New Mexico government and all the different laws and practices needed in order to analyze water governance. They also support and educate acequia networks and communities with different outreach projects. And even though I am from Colorado, I was very excited to be able to intern with the New Mexico Acequia Association because I have deep roots in northern New Mexico. And so I was really excited to be able to contribute to a community that I care so much about. My main focus were digital education projects, mostly about the Pecos mining project. So I talked about the laws and history regarding the legislation from the international mining company that wanted to come in and used the site, how it would impact nearby communities and their water access. And then I also sat in on different water governance trainings, updating different acequia mayordomos, which are basically like the heads of each acequia network, and talking about different legislation that had passed, how that's being affected because of COVID specifically, and then also contributing to youth outreach and involvement programs, doing different online seminars around everything from preserving vegetables to saving seeds. One thing that is really special about my internship is that I designed it myself. I ended up reaching out to the New Mexico Acequia Association after connecting with someone else from some previous work I had done. And it was a really good lesson in being very persistent and flexible, but also being able to use the power of praxis. I was part of the first cohort that kind of convinced the organization to start having interns. And then from now on, they have started an internship program. So being able to use the power of praxis, utilizing my resources at the Lazarus Center really helped me be able to not only design my internship, but be really successful in making it happen. My biggest takeaways would have to be rethinking the productivity that I had. I think before COVID and even during the summer, I figured I'm going to be at my internship, but even though I'm going to be doing it digitally, I'll be able to really focus a lot of time and be really productive in the projects that I was working on. But one of the biggest takeaways rethinking productivity was beneficial because I was able to take a step back. And I think it was also the culture of the organization that really made me learn about patience and taking things as they come and being flexible. In addition to that, also connecting with the community and the team at the New Mexico Acequia Association. I didn't know I could get so close to people I had never met before, only on a laptop screen, but also finding confidence in myself to communicate, stay up to date with my supervisor and stay in constant contact with them, and also broadening my experience in general. I had interned at a farm the summer prior for a practical experience for my environmental concentration, but I was really excited and pleased with all the things that I learned that made me broaden my expertise in agriculture and environmental efforts. Lastly, I was very fortunate to be able to connect with a University of New Mexico professor, and we had awesome conversations about acequias, and I just fell in love with the impacts that they've been able to make in the community, their history, their culture, and so that inspired me to focus on acequias for my seminar class, focusing on environmental security and the gender dynamics of water, and then again in a special studies on the governing institutions specifically and the different kind of dynamics that those create in the state. I think that this internship has really made me value my own lived experience. And because of that, I'm both proud and excited to announce I will be attending an International Masters of Environmental Policy program at Duke University in Kunshan, China, and being able to take what I learned and use it on an international level. And in addition to that, really thinking about the work that I've done and how it's helped inform me connect with others and environmental conversations, both nationally and internationally. I was able to co-author an article with The Guardian referencing some of the work that I did with the New Mexico Acequia Association and also other climate change activists. Lastly, I'd just like to say thank you so much to the Lazarus Center for the opportunities that they've been able to provide for students like me for praxis, and the New Mexico Acequia Association, my supervisor Serafina, and family and friends who supported me along the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophia. And finally, we will hear from Prachi.
I'll quickly share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen? So hi everyone, I am Prachi. I am a senior. I am majoring in quantitative economics and math. And over the summer, I interned at a boutique asset management firm, which focuses on global equity investments. So what that exactly means is like asset managers on behalf of their clients look into assets to invest in, which yield long-term returns. And what like firms like Prometheus Capital do is like they focus on assets that not only yield higher monetary returns in the long term, but also have a positive impact on the environment, the society. So all of Prometheus Capital's strategies are consistent with the principles and criteria associated with socially responsible investing, also known as environmental, social, and governance investing. I will be referring to environmental, social, and governance as ESG for simplicity throughout my presentation. So what exactly is ESG investing? The ESG investments are investments that seek positive returns and long-term impact on society, environment, and the performance of the business. So as I mentioned before, when you invest in ESG, you not only care about money that you get in the long run, but you also care about the positive impact you have on the environment and the society as you invest. So these are non-financial performance indicators, which include sustainable, ethical, and corporate governance issues, such as in regards to environment, like managing a company's carbon footprint, managing its waste and water production. When it comes to social, like looking at how the company treats its labor, how they manage their data and privacy issues, and how they manage supply chain. And lastly, ensuring that there are systems in place to ensure accountability in the company. And 2020 was a very important year for ESG. Like the entire world saw a rise of ESG, mostly because the pandemic highlighted that ESG investments in the long run do much better than their traditional counterparts. So superior financial results from companies with good ESG ratings attracted very high investor interest. And what my role going into the summer internship was first to understand myself what ESG meant. It is such a broad concept, and it is a relatively new concept than traditional finance. So first, like through reading blog posts, reading research articles that companies release, I myself understood what ESG was. And after like understanding industry specific ESG risks and opportunities, I assisted in the development of a framework that helps the company Prometheus Capital assess ESG risks and opportunities across the assets it manages. So the framework was very simple. It looked at first already set sustainability standards of the industry that the company was in. There is a board called the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, SASB, that sets different standards for different industries, like just looking at what matters the most for that specific industry. Like, for example, I looked at retail, and retail especially during 2020, what mattered the most was labor practices and supply chain management. So first looked at the industry standards, then after standards were set, analyzed the current performance of the company, what the company has been doing, and what the company has not been working on but can work on in the future. And once the new opportunities were identified, the framework also provided recommendations for the company to move forward. So overall, this internship opportunity was an amazing experience for me to learn about the intersection and interconnectedness of sustainability and finance. Like in my classes at Smith, or everything that I've done, like in theory, sustainability and finance don't really go well together. Like my sustainability classes really focused on the environment, and finance classes focused on the balance sheets, the cash flow statements, but never like both of them together. So this internship opportunity was a great opportunity to understand how sustainability and finance go well together, and how financial markets have an ever-increasing and very important role in driving positive changes on the ground. Like, for example, when you, from the very beginning, like looking at what an investor wants to invest in, like if they want to invest in oil and gas or renewable options, makes a huge difference in the long run. So it really helped me understand the importance financial markets have in like moving forward, creating more positive changes. And also in like light of the current macroeconomic background with the pandemic, it really highlighted why ESG was important and why it got more attention in 2020. And like answering that question, like the simplest way to say is like people started understanding it's important to take care of the climate, it's important to take care of the environment and the people you're working with. So because of the pressure from people, financial institutions started exploring new ways to integrate ESG into their investments. So like with everything, like with the work I did, I learned a lot about the work I did, but also gained a lot of soft skills, like starting from adjusting to a new environment, creating a structure for myself when the company itself was like looking for new ways to create a structure, and like just communicating with people all over the world. So it was not only a great opportunity for me to learn about the industry, learn about what I'm really passionate about, but also learn more about my work ethics and the way I work best under pressure. And moving forward, this internship really gave me some sort of clarity on what I want to do in the future. So I am ever looking for new ways to explore ways in which sustainability can be incorporated in investments to mitigate risk, increase efficiency, and create new opportunities. So for after graduation, like this, I never really thought I would get into finance. I was more interested in research, but like this internship really gave me more clarity on what I wanted to do. So after graduation, I was able to secure a role with the Pacific Investment Management Company, which is known for like their very strong ESG funds and the steps they've taken to increase ESG integration into their portfolios. So not only am I really excited about the role, but I'm also really excited about the opportunities that are out there in the world in terms of ESG. So thank you. That was the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Prachi. And we welcome audience members to enter any questions they have in the chat. We've got a few questions already, so if the panelists are ready, I'm gonna ask a few of these. So here's one for everyone. Some of you mentioned how you found your internship or how you developed your internship, but we'd like to hear more from each of you. I think students out there are wondering how you came across these opportunities.
I can go first. So initially I was planning to do research with a professor at Smith, and then COVID hit and plans changed. So I was able to secure this internship through talking to people. Like I reached out to a couple of people who were like doing work in finance, because not just finance, actually anything related to economics. And someone in my connection offered me a role. So like it was just networking that got me to the company.
I can speak to that as well. Yeah, I think for me, it was kind of a very slow moving process that like built up to more like roles and levels of responsibility. Because I had mentioned that I started volunteering, but I really only volunteered during breaks. So I got to the sites maybe 3 times, but like I just had that continued like updating them and like what I was doing. And like throughout the years, I would be like, oh, like I'm in New York, like can I go to the site and help out? And so I think just building a rapport with them so that they could kind of, not that I had the foresight to see an internship in the future, but so that they could kind of, they just knew my work ethic and they knew that I was consistently interested in the organization. So the idea of proposing an internship, because they hadn't had an intern in the last couple years. So once I proposed it, they agreed because they knew me in a sense, like, and not because there was a structure of internship. So I think having that relationship was really important for them being receptive to like having me come on to work with them.
I can go next. As I had also mentioned, I was supposed to be doing an internship through the Smith College Botanic Garden. And when we found out that that wouldn't be able to take place, the staff really like threw themselves into finding opportunities for everyone. And so the director of the Botanic Garden, Tim Johnson, reached out to the executive director of the American Public Gardens Association and sort of put us in connection. And again, there wasn't really like advertised internships, but they let us know what sort of projects they were working on and what they could use support with. And so that's how me and another student were able to get internships there and connect with them.
I, like many other panelists, also had to have a lot of persistence, and also in a serendipitous way. My supervisor was actually a Mount Holyoke alum, so I was able to kind of use some of the Seven Sisters network. But one thing that I also learned was I was also trying to do internships that were outside of Colorado, far away, maybe like on the East Coast in Massachusetts, but I also kind of learned to like bloom where you're planted and look for opportunities with smaller organizations that might be overlooked. And I had never even heard of the New Mexico Acequia Association, and kind of just went down a rabbit hole of trying to find smaller organizations to work with that would be more open to bringing on an intern, and having an intern also take on a little bit more responsibility, just because they're so short-staffed.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to try to combine a couple of these questions because I think they're going down the same path. I'm curious if maybe these were submitted by prospective Smithies. This person wants to know, did you start out at Smith with these interests? How did they develop during your time at Smith? And did Smith encourage you? Does Smith support your changing your plans or changing your interests?
I can go first. I feel like when I was touring colleges, I always heard like this classic story of people coming into college thinking they were going to do one thing and then completely changed their mind. And I was like, that's not going to happen to me. Like everyone just says that, but it definitely did happen. I came to Smith. I wasn't exactly sure, but I sort of thought I would maybe go more the like environmental science and policy route as well. And then I don't know, that major, I looked more into it, it didn't fit quite right. And so, yeah, my first semester, I took a landscape studies class and I was like, whoa, this is it. This is what I want to do. And then I also found I'd always been interested in anthropology. And so I came to that department as well. So I feel like Smith is really supportive of exploring various interests and not having to sort of settle on one specific thing right away. And it was also kind of a coincidence through a friend and a recommendation that I was able to start working at the Botanic Garden at Smith. And I feel so lucky to have been able to work there because the staff are all incredible and so supportive, and also really work hard to help find things that really interest me or every student. So yeah, I think it's a really great place to explore, and if you're not sure what you want to do right away.
Doesn't Storm have something?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I lucked out by choosing the environmental science and policy like major because it is so interdisciplinary and it kind of lends well to you exploring specific avenues within that. But I think what really like helped me, or the pivot point, was in my first year. I think I did the Phoebe Reese Lewis Leadership Program. And so it's just a lot of development and a lot of like building your confidence as a leader. And so one thing I remember was doing like an exercise, and we were told to think back to what you loved to do as a kid and use that as a source of inspiration for some of the work that you may like really love to do like now currently. And so for me, like I like wanted to be a chef and I just loved food. And I was like, food is my thing. Like I'm hyper passionate about food. And so just taking that, I think throughout Smith and being in the environmental science and policy department, I was able to like use that kind of as a foundation. And then through all of the different support systems like Praxis and the Sustainable Foods Concentration, I was able to then kind of explore it further and uncover layers. So like with this internship, I kind of uncovered another layer of food sovereignty, but specifically from the lens of like Black farmers. And that for me, it was kind of just a long process of unfolding different elements of food that I'm interested in studying.
Yeah, I would have to second what Storm said. I feel like Smith, if anything, has kind of helped more uncover things rather than made me change. And I would also like to also hype up Joanne's post in the chat about the listserv. I was able to collaborate with The Guardian and be able to do that work with the article because of information that I found on there. And I'm a government major, and so I wasn't inherently thought I would go into like environmental work, but like I said before, it just kind of unwrapped that way. And the way I wanted to look at policy and the way I wanted to look at structures was through agriculture and environment, because I was able to have experiences that, like Storm was saying, just unraveled, like another part of my identity, my work that I wanted to contribute, and what I was really interested in.
Yeah, and adding on to like what everyone just said, I think Smith really provides a very strong support to whatever you want to do. Like for me, I thought I initially wanted to do research, and I did have resources that connected me with opportunities. But again, like when I changed the field that I wanted to look into, I still had people who were like really supportive and like guided me to like new opportunities. So like whatever path you choose, like whatever you want to do, like there are people inside Smith and even like alums who have graduated who are like always willing to help.
Were any of you involved in any student organizations or activism on campus that influenced your decision to partake in these internships?
Maybe not as directly, but I was very involved in the Latino student organization, LASSO. And I think if anything, it just made me more proud and conscious of who I was and my identity and the work that I'm doing, especially when I walk into environmental conversations that are usually very white. And so I wanted to contribute something to a community that I really cared about in New Mexico, which is not necessarily looked at as a place of like, you know, great environmental sustainability and like at the forefront of like what's going on right now in terms of like climate change protection and things like that. But understanding where I'm coming from a background of like ranchers and farmers, and being able to value that and also using it to guide the work that I'm doing. So I don't know if it would be in like the reason why I chose to do this internship, but if anything, it gave me the confidence in myself and where I come from to be able to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone and do an internship with an organization that maybe some people hadn't heard of before, or that might not be like the primo organization working on these topics.
Okay, I've got some very specific questions for Jamila and Storm regarding composting. Let me just make sure I'm asking these correctly. So we have a person asking a question who is doing a service project centered on sustainability through composting. And this person's looking for how significant was composting in your internship work? What benefits did you notice from farmers using organic compost versus chemical fertilizers, and how might she grow her project around composting? Any advice there?
I can speak to that a little bit. So in terms of composting with like Corbin Hill, we initially towards the start of the summer, like because I like Corbin Hill Food Project works more, even though they're working across like distributors and producers, more of their operational like day-to-day tasks are around food distribution. So, but I can speak a lot to composting from a Smith lens. So actually I was just in my capstone course for my major, we had to choose a project, and I ended up choosing a project with Barstow's Farm, a dairy farm in Hadley, Massachusetts. But the other group, they actually did a study on composting at Smith. And so also involving like bioplastics as well, and like how that works, especially with COVID-19 and the increase in like to-go dining. So they like just had a really interesting perspective on what composting looks like at Smith now and how that's transitioning, and also alternatives for how Smith can improve their composting services and potential partnerships with farms in the area if they were to switch who they're supplying their compost to, because there are just a lot of challenges around composting. So I can connect you to, I'll put my email in the chat, but I can connect you to that group because they did a whole report, and the report is actually going to be accessible on the Smith, I think like the Smith library, they have all of the reports for those groups. So I can share that with you.
Yeah, I think Storm had some great things to say about that. And I think the public gardens associations themselves aren't like composting necessarily, but they have a lot of resources and online communities where people share lots of resources. So that can also be a great place to check out. And they have, yeah, resources and events also around composting.
Great. And Jamila, while I have you in the spotlight, could you tell us all what plant blindness means and how that factored into your work?
Sure. So plant blindness is basically just the idea that humans don't recognize or see plants like in their day-to-day lives, and are more sort of interested in animals, and that then also sort of leads to this like anthropocentric idea that plants are lesser than animals or not as powerful, and so they're just overlooked. And I think especially right now in 2021 and moving forward, it's really important for us to recognize the power and the potential that plants hold, and for them not to be overlooked.
All right. So this next question was submitted by someone not affiliated with the Lazarus Center, I promise. Can you all elaborate on how the resources in the Lazarus Center and Praxis assisted you in obtaining these internships? If at all.
I can go first. So I can not this internship specifically, but is it okay if I talk about how the Lazarus Center helped me with my job search in general? Because like the internship search was kind of all over the place due to COVID because I had something else planned. But the Lazarus Center, like starting from talking to you, like starting from helping you edit your resume, cover letter, everything, they're always there to help. And like Deb is on the call, so like I would like a huge shout out to Deb, who really helped me throughout my job search process. But then really like at every step of the job search, like wherever you're stuck, they're like always willing to help. And talking about Praxis, like this was the second time I used Praxis exactly. And like you don't really, it's like a one-time thing, but then the Lazarus Center was like really nice and really understanding, like understood the change of the environment, change of situation, and like how things do come up last minute and like plans do get canceled. So they were like I think they really helped into the smooth transition from like one thing to the other. So the Lazarus Center, like for me at least, was like a very big help in like all of my job searches, like all 4 years at Smith.
Anyone else?
I would also say that the Lazarus Center, just going on their website, just has awesome information about like a resume, like how to send a cover letter, like everything that I thought, oh, going into it, I totally understand. But just like seeing examples and being able to use resources like that was really helpful, even for internships that like I applied to or reached out to different organizations that didn't end up working out. I just felt really confident that I was like putting my best foot forward and being able to do it really professionally. I didn't really have that background going into Smith, and or really felt confident doing those kinds of things like resume, cover letters and stuff. And just the support, being able to talk to like a counselor or something like that, just gave me a lot of confidence to be able to design my own internship and just reach out and cold call like different organizations and things like that.
And I'll just throw in there too, I can't speak to this as much personally, so someone else maybe can speak more to this, but just the alumni network at Smith is just so strong. Like I will literally be walking down the street with my like Smith College mask and someone will stop me and be like, oh my God, you went to Smith. Like it's just such a like vivid and like really helpful and supportive network of people. And so I know a lot of my friends have gotten internships with alumni from Smith.
That is excellent advice. I'm mindful of the time. I'm going to ask maybe one more combined question here. I'm just curious what you would all give as advice for Smithies who are looking ahead to summer 2021 and considering these remote internships. I know you all had to change and kind of adapt your plans on short notice. What did you learn about yourself through this process, and what advice do you have for someone who's considering a remote internship? It's a big question.
I would say go for it. Like I said, I'm in the sustainable food concentration, and the past summer I was working on a farm, and I feel like I was kind of stuck in thinking that environmental work or agricultural work had to just be hands-on. And even though it is primarily focused, working out in the field, creating community like in person, there's still a lot of really important work that can be done virtually that's also really meaningful. And so I would say do it. And also, geographically, no matter where you are, sometimes that could also provide more opportunities to connect with people and be in a different space that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So I would say go for it. Just think about the ways in which you could contribute to that topic or your interest in a different way. And I feel like now after COVID, like everybody's kind of becoming more comfortable being virtual and like reimagining how we conduct ourselves and do work these days. So I would say I wouldn't be nervous, maybe a little anxious, I understand, but to just take it head on and use it as an opportunity instead of something to be scared of.
Yeah, I really agree, especially with the geographic element that it really allows you to go a little further afield and maybe work with an organization that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. And yeah, also I would again say go for it, and it might be a very different experience, but every experience has some value, and you can still learn a lot and feel connected to colleagues, even if it is just through a screen. But I feel like, just explore and think about what you're interested in, what you would really enjoy doing, and what you can also bring to an organization. And yeah, it's an exciting process.
Anyone else have anything to add?
I can add a small thing. For me, I think there are so many different opportunities that you don't even know of. So just feel free to explore, because as an economics and math major, I didn't think I would be able to do anything with sustainability. But then there are so many things out there that you don't know of. So just reach out to people, especially as mentioned before, Smith alums are very helpful. They're really willing to talk to you. So just talking to people is going to open up a lot more opportunities for you as well.
All right, I think we've pretty much covered everyone's questions. If I missed anyone's questions, you're always welcome to email the Lazarus Center at lazarus@smith.edu, and we'll try to get you connected to the panelists who can best answer your question. But I think this concludes the Smith in the Virtual World Conference for this year. Thank you again to all of our wonderful panelists. I really enjoyed this. I hope you all did too. And I hope you all join us for next year's conference, wherever that may be, in person or remote. But thank you so much for joining us.